My name is Natalie Ward. I'm 32 years old. And after building a successful career in pharmaceutical sales that allows me to earn substantial commissions while helping doctors provide better patient care through innovative medications, I have spent the last 5 years attending monthly family dinners where my older brother Marcus sneers that I bring nothing to this family, while my younger sister Jessica adds that we're the ones who actually care about Mom, completely unaware that I have been quietly paying the $47,000 in annual medical expenses that keep our mother Helen alive and comfortable. What they didn't know was that their routine mockery and dismissal of my contributions while I secretly funded their mother's survival was about to be exposed in the most devastating way possible when I would finally reveal exactly who had been bringing nothing to the family and who had been ensuring Helen's medical needs were met for years. The monthly family dinners that had become a source of dread and humiliation for me began 3 years ago, when Helen's medical condition deteriorated to the point where she required extensive ongoing treatment, medication management, and specialized care services that created both logistical challenges and significant financial obligations for our family to coordinate and address. We should all get together once a month to discuss Mom's situation and make sure everyone is contributing appropriately to her care and support, Marcus had suggested when Helen's medical needs became too complex for informal family coordination and communication. The idea of regular family meetings to discuss Helen's care had seemed both practical and appropriate at the time, since her medical situation required ongoing coordination between multiple healthcare providers, insurance companies, and family members who could assist with different aspects of her treatment and daily living support. It's important that we all understand Mom's needs and work together as a family to ensure she gets the best possible care, Jessica had added with obvious sincerity about her commitment to family support and her desire to be involved in coordinating Helen's medical management and daily assistance. But what had started as productive family meetings to coordinate Helen's care had gradually evolved into monthly gatherings where Marcus and Jessica used their physical proximity to Helen and their frequent visits as evidence of superior family devotion, while dismissing my financial contributions as somehow less meaningful than their daily presence and emotional support. Marcus drives Mom to all her doctor appointments and handles her prescription pickups, Helen would explain to relatives who inquired about her care arrangements. Jessica helps with grocery shopping and housework that I can't manage anymore. They're both so devoted and helpful with everything I need. The praise for Marcus and Jessica's transportation services and household assistance was both appropriate and deserved, since they were providing genuine help that made Helen's daily life more comfortable and manageable during her ongoing medical treatment and recovery periods. Natalie is busy with her career, Helen would continue with the kind of explanation that made it clear my absence from daily care activities was understood but not necessarily appreciated by family members who measured devotion through physical presence rather than financial support. My pharmaceutical sales career required extensive travel throughout the Pacific Northwest, building relationships with healthcare providers, attending medical conferences, and coordinating with hospital systems and clinics that served thousands of patients who depended on the medications I helped bring to market. I work with oncology practices that treat cancer patients, I would explain when family members asked about my job. I help doctors understand new treatment options and ensure their patients have access to medications that can extend their lives and improve their quality of care. The professional satisfaction of helping healthcare providers serve their patients more effectively was both personally meaningful and financially rewarding, with commission structures that recognized successful pharmaceutical representatives who built strong relationships with medical practices and demonstrated measurable impact on patient outcomes. But while my career success was generating the income necessary to fund Helen's extensive medical expenses, my family had developed a narrative where physical presence and emotional support were more valuable than the financial resources that actually made Helen's treatment and comfort possible. "We never see Natalie anymore," Marcus would complain during family gatherings. "She's always traveling for work or attending some conference, while Jessica and I are here actually taking care of Mom and handling her real needs." The characterization of my career travel as avoiding family responsibilities while Marcus and Jessica were actually taking care of Mom ignored the reality that Helen's extensive medical needs required substantial financial resources that neither Marcus nor Jessica could provide on their limited incomes from construction work and part-time retail employment. Natalie's career has made her forget about family priorities, Jessica would add with obvious resentment about my professional success and perceived detachment from daily family activities. Money isn't everything when it comes to taking care of people you love. The irony of criticizing my focus on earning money while Helen's survival depended entirely on the financial resources that money provided for her medical care was apparently lost on family members who had never had to calculate the cost of keeping someone alive through expensive treatments and medications. Have you ever been criticized for working to earn the money that solved your family's problems, while people who contributed far less received praise for their presence and emotional support? That's exactly what I was experiencing as my family elevated daily assistance over the financial foundation that made Helen's care possible. The medical expenses that I had been covering for Helen's ongoing treatment were both extensive and essential, representing the difference between basic survival and quality health care that addressed her multiple chronic conditions through specialized medications, regular monitoring, and professional care services that insurance policies refuse to cover despite their medical necessity. Your mother's insurance will cover basic medical needs, but many of the treatments and medications she requires for optimal care are considered experimental or cosmetic by her health plan, Helen's primary care physician had explained during one of our care planning meetings. The gap between insurance coverage and actual medical needs was substantial, creating annual out-of-pocket expenses that exceeded $47,000 for treatments, medications, specialized consultations, home care services, and medical equipment that were essential for Helen's comfort and long-term health management. We can provide basic care within insurance limitations, or we can provide optimal care that addresses all of her conditions and significantly improves her quality of life, the physician had continued. The choice depends on your family's financial resources and priorities regarding her ongoing treatment. The choice between basic survival and comprehensive care was not actually a choice at all, since Helen deserved the best possible medical treatment regardless of insurance limitations or family financial constraints. But it was a choice that required someone in the family to have sufficient income and willingness to prioritize Helen's needs over their own financial security. "I'll handle whatever expenses are necessary for Mom's optimal care," I had told the physician without consulting Marcus or Jessica, since I already understood that their limited incomes could never support the level of financial commitment required for Helen's comprehensive medical treatment. The decision to personally fund Helen's medical expenses had been both emotionally motivated and financially devastating, requiring me to delay personal financial goals like home ownership, retirement savings, and business investment while redirecting substantial portions of my pharmaceutical sales income toward Helen's ongoing care costs. Monthly transfers of approximately $3,900 will cover your mother's medications, treatments, and care services, the medical practice's financial coordinator had explained, as we established automatic payment arrangements that would ensure Helen's care continued without interruption or administrative delays. The automatic payment system that deducted nearly $4,000 monthly from my checking account represented almost half of my take-home income. But it was also the invisible financial infrastructure that made Helen's comfortable recovery and ongoing treatment possible without family discussion or coordination. But while I was quietly funding Helen's comprehensive medical care, Marcus and Jessica were developing a family narrative where their transportation services, household assistance, and emotional support were the primary factors ensuring Helen's well-being and recovery progress. I spend every weekend at Mom's house helping with cleaning, grocery shopping, and meal preparation, Jessica would tell relatives during family gatherings. She depends on me for so many daily tasks that she can't manage on her own anymore. The household assistance that Jessica provided was both genuine and appreciated by Helen, who clearly benefited from having family members available for daily support and companionship during her ongoing medical treatment and recovery periods. I handle all of Mom's transportation to medical appointments, prescription pickups, and errands that require driving, Marcus would add when discussing family contributions to Helen's care. She couldn't maintain her medical treatment schedule without someone reliable to provide transportation and coordinate her appointments. The transportation services that Marcus provided were also essential for Helen's care, since her medical condition prevented her from driving safely, and her treatment schedule required frequent trips to various healthcare providers, pharmacies, and testing facilities throughout the metro area. But while Marcus and Jessica's contributions were valuable and necessary, they were also completely dependent on the financial foundation that I was providing through monthly payments that covered all of Helen's medical expenses, medications, and specialized care services that made her recovery and stability possible. The family dynamic that had evolved around Helen's care was both unfair and unsustainable, with Marcus and Jessica receiving praise and recognition for contributions that were logistically helpful, but financially minimal, while my substantial financial sacrifice remained invisible and unacknowledged by family members who benefited from its results without understanding its source. The monthly family dinners that were supposed to coordinate Helen's care had become forums for Marcus and Jessica to establish their superior family devotion while diminishing my contributions as evidence of career-focused selfishness rather than recognizing my financial support as the foundation that made their assistance meaningful and Helen's care comprehensive. But the woman who had been quietly subsidizing her family's medical stability while enduring monthly humiliation about her supposed lack of family commitment was about to reach the breaking point where years of invisible generosity would be exposed in the most dramatic and devastating way possible for people who had taken her sacrifice for granted while mocking her character and priorities. The family dynamic that had made my monthly humiliation possible was rooted in assumptions and misunderstandings about who was actually providing what types of support for Helen's extensive medical needs, creating a false narrative where visible daily assistance was more important than invisible financial assistance that made comprehensive care possible. Marcus lives only 20 minutes from Mom's house, so he's always available when she needs help or has medical emergencies, Helen would explain to relatives who asked about her care arrangements. It's so comforting to know that he can be there quickly if something goes wrong, or if she needs immediate assistance. The geographic proximity that made Marcus readily available for transportation and emergency assistance was indeed valuable for Helen's peace of mind and practical care coordination. But it was also the foundation for assumptions about financial responsibility that had never been explicitly discussed or confirmed with actual financial documentation. Since Marcus is closest and most involved in Mom's daily care, we assumed he was also handling her medical expenses and insurance coordination, our Aunt Patricia had mentioned during one family gathering. It makes sense that the person providing the most hands-on care would also be managing the financial aspects of her treatment. The assumption that proximity and visibility equaled financial responsibility was both logical and completely incorrect, but it was an assumption that Marcus had never corrected and may have actively encouraged through vague comments about handling everything for Helen's care and support needs. Jessica helps with all of Mom's household management and personal care needs, Helen would continue when describing family support arrangements. She organizes medications, manages appointments, and provides emotional support during difficult treatment periods. I don't know what I would do without both of them. The medication organization and appointment management that Jessica provided were indeed essential services that made Helen's complex medical routine more manageable and less stressful, but they were also activities that created the appearance of comprehensive care coordination without requiring significant financial investment or sacrifice. "We handle everything for Mom," Marcus would say when relatives praised his and Jessica's dedication to family care. "She never has to worry about medical appointments, household tasks, or any of the daily challenges that come with managing serious health conditions." The comprehensive claim about handling everything was technically accurate in terms of daily logistics and emotional support, but it was also misleading about the financial reality that made their assistance possible and Helen's care affordable, despite insurance limitations and extensive treatment requirements. Natalie is focused on her career and building her professional success, Jessica would add when family members noted my absence from daily care activities. We understand that some people prioritize work over family, so Marcus and I have stepped up to fill that gap and ensure Mom gets the attention she deserves. The characterization of my career focus as choosing work over family while Marcus and Jessica had stepped up to provide superior care created a family narrative where my financial contributions were irrelevant compared to their physical presence and emotional availability. It's hard when family members become too successful to participate in real family responsibilities. Marcus would continue with obvious resentment about my professional achievements and perceived detachment from family obligations. Money changes people and makes them forget about what really matters in family relationships. Have you ever been criticized for earning money while people who criticized you were completely dependent on that money for their comfort and security? That's exactly what was happening as my family developed elaborate justifications for my supposed selfishness while living off the financial resources that my selfish career was providing for Helen's comprehensive medical care. The monthly family dinners where these dynamics played out had gradually evolved from practical care coordination meetings into forums for establishing family hierarchy based on perceived devotion and sacrifice, with Marcus and Jessica consistently positioning themselves as more committed family members while portraying me as someone who had forgotten family values in pursuit of professional success. "We need to talk about increasing Mom's care support," Marcus would typically announce at the beginning of each monthly dinner. "Jessica and I are doing everything we can, but there are additional services and treatments that would improve her quality of life if we could find ways to fund them." The discussions about additional care services were both appropriate and necessary, since Helen's medical condition was ongoing and her needs were evolving as her treatment progressed and her mobility and independence fluctuated with her response to various medications and therapeutic interventions. Physical therapy would help Mom maintain her mobility and strength, Jessica would add when discussing potential care improvements. "The insurance company will only cover basic services, but specialized therapy could make a significant difference in her long-term health outcomes and daily comfort." The identification of additional care needs that could benefit Helen was exactly the kind of family discussion that monthly meetings were supposed to facilitate, ensuring that all family members were aware of opportunities to improve her medical support and quality of life through coordinated efforts and resources. "We're already doing everything we can with transportation, household help, and emotional support," Marcus would continue. "But these additional services require financial resources that Jessica and I don't have available from our current income and existing family financial obligations." The acknowledgement that additional care services required financial resources beyond what Marcus and Jessica could provide was both honest about their economic limitations and a setup for discussions about how family members with greater financial capacity might contribute to Helen's expanded care needs. "Maybe Natalie could help with some of these expenses," Jessica would suggest with obvious reluctance, as if asking me to contribute financially was somehow inappropriate or burdensome, rather than recognizing that I was already funding the majority of Helen's care costs. "Natalie makes good money in pharmaceutical sales," Marcus would add with resentment disguised as factual observation. "She could easily afford to help with Mom's care if she wanted to prioritize family over her expensive lifestyle and career advancement goals." The suggestion that I should help with Mom's care, while I was already paying $47,000 annually for her medical expenses, was both ironic and revealing about how completely my family misunderstood the financial reality of Helen's comprehensive treatment and care arrangements. "I'm sure Natalie would be willing to contribute something if she understood Mom's needs," Helen would say diplomatically, apparently unwilling to reveal the extent of financial support I was already providing, while also unwilling to defend my contributions against Marcus and Jessica's implied criticism of my family priorities. But while these monthly discussions continued to revolve around my supposed lack of financial contribution to Helen's care, I was also beginning to understand that my family's comfortable assumptions about who was providing what types of support were about to be challenged in a way that would permanently alter their understanding of family sacrifice and devotion. The breaking point that would finally force me to expose the truth about family financial arrangements came during a particularly brutal monthly dinner, where Marcus and Jessica's mockery of my contributions escalated to include extended family members who joined their campaign to establish my selfishness and their superior devotion to Helen's care and family relationships. Before we discuss Mom's care needs this month, I want to address something that's been bothering Jessica and me. Marcus announced during the dinner that would become our family's most devastating confrontation about money, sacrifice, and the reality of who was actually supporting whom in our family financial arrangements. The formal tone and obvious preparation suggested that Marcus and Jessica had been planning this confrontation for weeks, coordinating their approach to establish my inadequate family contribution while positioning themselves as the primary sources of Helen's care and support during her ongoing medical treatment. Natalie, you've been absent from most family activities and care responsibilities for the past several years. Jessica began with obvious rehearsal and coordination with Marcus about the points they wanted to make during their planned intervention about my supposed family neglect. We understand that your career is important to you, Marcus continued with patronizing tone that suggested my professional success was somehow selfish compared to their family dedication. But family should be more important than money and professional achievement. The setup for what was clearly going to be a comprehensive attack on my character and priorities was both predictable and painful, since it was occurring in front of extended family members who had been invited to witness and support Marcus and Jessica's claims about family hierarchy and devotion. Marcus is absolutely right, our Uncle Robert chimed in with agreement that had obviously been solicited before dinner began. Family members should prioritize taking care of each other over building personal wealth and career advancement. The coordination between Marcus, Jessica, and extended family members to create a united front against my supposed selfishness was both emotionally devastating and strategically designed to make me feel isolated and defensive about career choices that were actually funding the family stability they were celebrating. Jessica and Marcus have sacrificed so much to take care of Helen, our Aunt Patricia added, with praise for their daily assistance, while implicitly criticizing my absence from household tasks and transportation services. They've put their own needs aside to ensure Helen gets the attention and care she deserves. The praise for Marcus and Jessica's sacrifice, while characterizing my financial contributions as inadequate or non-existent, was building toward a family intervention designed to pressure me into providing more visible assistance while continuing to take my invisible financial support for granted. Natalie lives off this family without giving back, Jessica declared with stunning inaccuracy about my financial relationship with family members who were completely dependent on my income for Helen's medical care. She benefits from being part of our family while we do all the real work of caring for people we love. The accusation that I was living off the family while Marcus and Jessica did all the real work was so completely opposite to financial reality that it was both shocking and revealing about how thoroughly they had convinced themselves that daily presence was more valuable than the money that made Helen's care possible. I'm the real family provider here, Marcus announced with incredible confidence about his role in family financial support. I handle everything for Mom's care while Natalie focuses on making money for herself instead of contributing to family needs. Have you ever been accused of not contributing to family needs by someone whose family member's survival was entirely dependent on your financial contributions? That's exactly what I was experiencing as Marcus claimed to be the real family provider, while Helen's $47,000 in annual medical expenses were being paid from my bank account. We're the ones who actually care about Mom, Jessica added with moral superiority that was both cruel and completely disconnected from the financial reality that had made their assistance meaningful, rather than just emotional support, without practical impact on Helen's comprehensive medical treatment. The coordinated attack on my character and contributions while surrounded by extended family members who nodded in agreement was the moment I realized that years of quietly subsidizing Helen's medical care while enduring monthly humiliation had reached the point where exposure of financial reality was both necessary and appropriate. Since everyone seems to have strong opinions about family contributions, I said, standing up from the dinner table with calm determination that immediately changed the atmosphere from coordinated attack to something more serious and potentially explosive, maybe we should discuss exactly who has been contributing what to Mom's care. The shift in my tone and posture from defensive target to confident challenger was immediately noticed by everyone at the table, as they began to understand that my response to their intervention was not going to be the apologetic acceptance of criticism they had apparently expected. Since I apparently bring nothing to this family, I continued with growing confidence about the confrontation I was about to initiate. Let me ask Mom a direct question that will clarify exactly who has been providing what types of family support. The anticipation in the room was both uncomfortable and electric, as extended family members who had participated in attacking my character began to sense that their coordinated intervention was about to be challenged in ways they had not anticipated or prepared for during their planning of this family meeting. "Mom," I said, looking directly at Helen while everyone waited to hear what question would apparently expose the truth about family contributions and support arrangements. "Who has been paying your $47,000 in annual medical bills?" The question hung in the air like a bomb that had been dropped into the middle of their comfortable mythology about family sacrifice and devotion, as everyone at the table began to process the financial implications of what I was asking, and what Helen's answer would reveal about the reality of family financial arrangements. The silence that followed my question about Helen's medical expenses was immediate and complete, as every person at the table began to process the financial implications of what I had just revealed, while Helen's face went pale with understanding that her secret arrangement with me was about to become public knowledge that would destroy Marcus and Jessica's narrative about family contributions. "What $47,000? Marcus asked with confusion and growing anxiety about medical expenses he had never calculated or considered, despite his claims about handling everything for Helen's comprehensive care and support needs. "Mom's annual medical expenses that insurance doesn't cover," I replied, while reaching into my purse for the bank statements and payment records that would prove exactly who had been funding Helen's survival and comfort for the past 3 years. "The medications that keep her heart condition stable cost $1,800 per month," I continued, as I began laying out financial documentation that would expose the scope of medical expenses that Marcus and Jessica had never seen or calculated. "Her specialized physical therapy is $950 monthly. The home health aid visits are $1,200 monthly." Each line item represented a specific aspect of Helen's care that was essential for her comfort and health management, but completely unknown to family members who had been praising each other for providing transportation and household assistance, while remaining ignorant about the financial foundation that made comprehensive care possible. "The quarterly visits to her cardiologist specialist are $800 each time because he's out of network, but provides the expertise her condition requires." I continued with additional details about expenses that Marcus and Jessica had never seen or inquired about during their years of managing Helen's daily care logistics. "Monthly transfers from my checking account to cover all of Mom's medical expenses total $3,900 automatically," I said, while showing bank statements that documented 2 years of payments to medical providers, pharmacies, and care services that had kept Helen alive and comfortable. The comprehensive financial documentation was undeniable evidence that Helen's extensive medical care had been funded entirely by my income, while Marcus and Jessica had been completely unaware of the costs involved in keeping their mother healthy and stable throughout her ongoing treatment. "You've been paying for Mom's medical care?" Jessica whispered with shock and growing horror about the reality that she had been mocking the sister who was literally keeping their mother alive through financial sacrifice that exceeded both of their annual incomes combined. "I've been paying for everything that insurance doesn't cover for the past 3 years. I confirmed with accuracy about the scope of financial support that had been invisible to family members who had been praising themselves for providing superior care while remaining ignorant about its cost. "Helen, is this true?" Our Aunt Patricia asked with growing understanding about how completely the extended family had misunderstood the financial dynamics that made Helen's care and comfort possible during her extensive medical treatment. Natalie has been covering my medical expenses, Helen admitted with tears streaming down her face, as she finally acknowledged the financial sacrifice that had been hidden from family discussions for years to protect Marcus and Jessica's pride and self-image as primary care providers. "Why didn't you tell us?" Marcus demanded with anger and embarrassment about discovering that his claims about being the real family provider had been completely false, while his sister had been secretly funding everything he had been taking credit for managing. "Because I was embarrassed about depending on Natalie's income," Helen replied with honesty about her motivation for keeping the financial arrangement secret. "I wanted you and Jessica to feel important and needed for the care you were providing. Have you ever watched people realize that they had been mocking someone who was completely supporting them while they contributed almost nothing to the situation they were taking credit for managing? That's exactly what was happening as my family understood that their entire narrative about sacrifice and devotion had been built on financial support they had never acknowledged or appreciated. So, when Marcus said he was handling everything for Mom's care, our Uncle Robert said with growing comprehension about how wrong their assumptions had been, Natalie was actually paying for everything while Marcus provided transportation? When Jessica said Natalie lives off the family without giving back, Aunt Patricia added with embarrassment about her participation in attacking someone who was subsidizing the family member they were all concerned about, Natalie was actually giving $47,000 per year while Jessica helped with household tasks? The brutal summary of actual versus perceived contributions was forcing everyone at the table to confront how completely they had misunderstood family financial dynamics while participating in monthly humiliation of the person whose generosity had made Helen's comprehensive care possible. "I can't believe we've been criticizing you for not contributing to family needs," Jessica said with horror about the magnitude of her misunderstanding and the cruelty she had been directing towards someone who was sacrificed far more than anyone else in the family. "I called you selfish for focusing on your career," Marcus added with growing recognition of how his resentment about my professional success had been completely misguided, since that career was funding his mother's survival. "Your career has been keeping Mom alive while I thought you didn't care about family." The acknowledgement that my selfish career focus had been the financial foundation for Helen's medical stability, while Marcus and Jessica provided logistical support, was both vindicating and devastating, since it revealed how thoroughly my family had misunderstood my priorities and contributions. "Natalie, we owe you an enormous apology," Helen said, with recognition of how cruel it had been to allow monthly mockery of someone who was making massive financial sacrifices to ensure her health and comfort. "I should have defended you instead of letting Marcus and Jessica criticize you while you were paying for my survival." The admission that Helen had allowed family members to attack my character while knowing that I was funding her comprehensive medical care was both painful and revealing about how family dynamics had become more important to her than protecting the person who was actually ensuring her well-being. "We've been horrible to you," Aunt Patricia said with shame about her participation in family meetings that had consistently elevated Marcus and Jessica's contributions, while dismissing mine as evidence of selfishness rather than recognizing them as extraordinary generosity and sacrifice. But while my extended family began to understand the magnitude of their mistake in judging family contributions and loyalty, I was preparing to deliver consequences for years of mockery and dismissal that had made my monthly humiliation possible while I subsidized their comfort and Helen's survival. "Since this family has made it very clear that I bring nothing and live off everyone else while you do all the real work," I announced with calm finality that immediately captured everyone's attention, "I think it's time for the real family providers to take over all aspects of Mom's care." The implication that I was withdrawing my financial support was both shocking and terrifying for family members who were suddenly understanding that Helen's medical care had been entirely dependent on income that Marcus and Jessica could never replace with their limited earnings from construction work and retail employment. The complete panic that followed my announcement about ending financial support revealed just how thoroughly my family had been living in denial about the reality of Helen's medical expenses and their complete inability to maintain her care without the income that my pharmaceutical sales career generated through years of professional dedication they had characterized as family neglect. "Natalie, you can't stop paying for Mom's medical care," Marcus said with immediate understanding that Helen's survival depended entirely on financial resources that neither he nor Jessica possessed or could generate through their current employment and income levels. "Why not?" I replied with reasonable challenge to his assumption that I should continue funding medical expenses for someone whose family had spent years mocking my contributions and character. "You've all made it very clear that I don't contribute anything meaningful to this family." The logical connection between their years of criticism and my decision to withdraw support was both obvious and devastating, since it forced them to confront the consequences of taking my generosity for granted, while systematically undermining my confidence and family relationships. "We didn't understand what you were contributing," Jessica said with desperate recognition that her mockery had been directed at the person whose income was keeping their mother alive. "We thought Marcus was handling the financial aspects of Mom's care." "You never asked who was paying for Mom's medical expenses," I replied with accuracy about their assumptions and lack of curiosity about the financial reality that made Helen's comprehensive care possible. "You just assumed it wasn't me because I was supposedly too selfish and career-focused to care about family." The acknowledgement that their criticism had been based on assumptions rather than facts was both embarrassing and educational, since it revealed how family mythology about contributions and sacrifice could develop without any foundation in financial reality or actual knowledge about who was providing what types of support. "How much do you think Mom's medical care costs annually?" I asked Marcus directly, testing whether his claims about handling everything had ever included calculating or understanding the financial reality of comprehensive medical treatment. "Maybe $10,000 or $15,000? Marcus guessed with obvious ignorance about medical expenses that he had been claiming to manage and coordinate despite never seeing bills or payment arrangements. $47,000 annually, I corrected with precise accuracy about costs that represented more than Marcus earned in his best construction years. Nearly $4,000 every month for medications, treatments, and services that keep Mom stable and comfortable. The revelation that Helen's medical expenses exceeded Marcus's annual income was both shocking and mathematically impossible for him to cover, making it clear that his claims about being the real family provider had been based on complete ignorance about the financial reality of what he claimed to be providing. "We can't afford that kind of money," Jessica admitted, with recognition that her part-time retail income could never support even a fraction of Helen's monthly medical expenses. "Neither of us makes enough to cover those kinds of ongoing costs." "Then you have a serious problem," I replied, with factual assessment of their situation, now that the family's real financial provider was no longer willing to subsidize medical care while being mocked and dismissed by the people who benefited from that care. "Mom will lose her medical care if you stop paying," Helen said with panic about the reality that her comprehensive treatment depended entirely on income that Marcus and Jessica could never replace, and that I was no longer willing to provide. "Mom will receive whatever medical care Marcus and Jessica can afford to provide," I corrected with accuracy about the natural consequences of family members taking over financial responsibilities they had been claiming credit for without understanding their scope or cost. "Have you ever forced people who had been mocking your contributions to face the reality of providing what you had been providing while they criticized you?" That's exactly what I was doing as I established consequences for years of taking my generosity for granted while systematically undermining my family relationships and self-worth. "What would it take for you to continue helping with Mom's medical expenses?" Aunt Patricia asked, with recognition that family intervention was needed to repair relationships that had been damaged by years of misunderstanding and inappropriate criticism. "Public acknowledgement that I've been the primary financial provider for Mom's care," I said with specific requirement for ending the false narrative that had elevated Marcus and Jessica's contributions while making my sacrifice invisible to extended family members. Recognition that my career success has been essential for keeping Mom alive and comfortable, rather than evidence that I don't care about family. I continued with additional requirement that my professional achievements be viewed as family contribution rather than selfish personal advancement. And an end to monthly family meetings where I'm criticized for not contributing, while people who contribute far less receive praise for their superior family devotion. I added, with final requirement, that would protect me from future mockery and ensure that family discussions were based on accurate understanding of actual contributions rather than assumptions and favoritism. "We can do all of that," Marcus said with immediate acceptance of conditions that would restore Helen's financial support, while acknowledging reality about family contributions and sacrifice that had been hidden for years. "We should have been thanking you instead of criticizing you," Jessica added with recognition that monthly family meetings had become forums for attacking the person who was actually ensuring Helen's well-being and medical stability. "Natalie has been the most important contributor to Mom's care," Helen said with public acknowledgement that was both overdue and necessary for repairing family relationships that had been damaged by years of allowing unfair criticism of someone who was making extraordinary financial sacrifices. "But while my family agreed to change dynamics that would acknowledge my contributions and end my monthly humiliation, I was also understanding that some damage to trust and relationships might be permanent, since they had revealed their willingness to mock and dismiss someone who was completely supporting them when they thought that support would continue, regardless of how they treated me." 6 months after the family dinner that exposed the truth about who had been paying Helen's medical expenses, our family dynamics had evolved into something more honest and balanced, with appropriate recognition for different types of contributions, and clear understanding about the financial reality that made Helen's comprehensive care possible. "Thank you for everything you've done to keep me healthy and comfortable," Helen said during our monthly family gatherings that had been restructured to focus on appreciation rather than criticism. "I should have defended your contributions instead of letting Marcus and Jessica criticize you while you were sacrificing so much for my medical care." The regular acknowledgement of my financial sacrifice was both personally meaningful and practically necessary for maintaining family relationships based on truth rather than mythology about who was providing what types of essential support for Helen's ongoing treatment needs. "We understand now that different family members contribute in different ways," Marcus said with accurate recognition of family dynamics that had been distorted by assumptions and lack of communication about actual financial arrangements. "Transportation and daily assistance are important, but they're only possible because of the medical foundation that Natalie provides. The honest assessment of different contributions without false claims about superiority or greater sacrifice was exactly what I had been seeking through years of invisible support and the confrontation that had exposed financial reality to family members who had been completely ignorant about their dependence on my income. My pharmaceutical sales career isn't just about making money for myself," I explained during one family meeting, where we discussed how professional success and family support could be complementary rather than competing priorities. "It's about earning enough to ensure that people I love can receive the medical care they need when insurance isn't sufficient." The connection between career success and family contribution was something that had been lost in years of false narrative about selfish personal advancement versus family devotion. But it was also the key to understanding how different family members could serve others through different types of sacrifice and commitment. "We've learned that assuming someone isn't contributing just because their contribution isn't visible can be incredibly unfair and hurtful," Jessica said with recognition that daily assistance had created the illusion of comprehensive care, while the financial foundation remained invisible and unacknowledged. The education about visible versus invisible contributions was valuable for family members who had never considered that the most essential support might be the support that beneficiaries never see directly, but that makes all other assistance meaningful and sustainable. Natalie's willingness to continue supporting Mom's medical care after we treated her so poorly shows incredible generosity and family commitment, Aunt Patricia said with appreciation that was both genuine and overdue after months of participating in criticism that had been completely misguided. The recognition that I had continued financial support despite years of mockery and dismissal was both acknowledgement of my character and recognition that family relationships should be based on mutual respect, rather than taking generosity for granted while providing criticism in return. But perhaps most importantly, our family had learned that assumptions about contributions and sacrifice could be dangerous and hurtful when they weren't based on actual knowledge about financial arrangements and the reality of who was providing what types of essential support during medical emergencies and ongoing treatment needs. "We're grateful for everything Natalie has done," Helen concluded during our 6-month anniversary of the confrontation that had saved our family relationships by exposing truth that had been hidden too long. She showed us that the most important family contributions aren't always the most visible ones. If you're reading this and you're providing financial support for family members who dismiss or mock your contributions while praising others for less significant assistance, please know that you have the right to demand recognition for your sacrifices and accurate understanding of who is actually providing essential support. Sometimes people who benefit from your generosity are also the people who value it least, and sometimes forcing them to face the reality of living without your support is the only way to establish appropriate appreciation for what you've been providing while being taken for granted. If this story resonated with your own experiences, please hit that subscribe button and share your experiences in the comments below. Have you ever been the invisible family provider who was criticized while others received praise for your contributions? How did you handle family members who mocked your generosity while depending on it for their survival? Your story might help someone else who's struggling with similar family dynamics and unacknowledged sacrifice. Thank you for joining me on this journey from invisible support through family mockery to honest recognition and balanced relationships. Remember that your contributions have real value, and family members who mock you while living off your generosity need to learn that appreciation is the price of continued support. See you in our next story here at Her Sweet Revenge.